Welcome back, guys. Um, Got a new little project here I've been working on the last week or two. So I'm doing a little troubleshooting on it, working out all the kinks in there. Um, this is an old Dell Precision T7500 that I picked up from an old customer that was just throwing it away. It was having some issues. They didn't feel like fixing it. So I pretty much just took it off their hands and took it upon myself to correct all the issues that it's been having. I've put it through its paces. Um, I've ins- installed a temporary solid state drive in there now just for testing purposes and loaded Windows 7 just so I'm going to have something to boot to while I just troubleshooting everything. Um, the problem the problem was why the customer got rid of it is because one of the processors. This particular PC comes with two processors. One of the processors had gone bad, which was what was preventing it from booting in the first place. I had two spare Xeons that I swapped them out for. They're just dual core Xeons. So it's four cores total between both processors. I was able to get it to boot, function properly. Um, I've got 48 gigs of RAM installed in it right now. Now, the processor I have in it right now, like I mentioned a minute ago, is the series of Xeon in it. The model is the E5603, which is, like I said, it's just a dual core at 1.6 gigahertz. Now, I did buy two new Xeons I found on eBay. It's the model is the X5690. It's a 6-core, 12-thread Xeon processor, which I'll have two of those. So it'll be 12 cores, 24 threads total, and it'll be running at, I think it clocks in at about 3.5 gigahertz, which for this model, I think it's like early 2010s. But for Windows 7, that's way more horsepower than I'll ever need on Windows 7. Um, for the video cards, I have both of those NVIDIA Quadro FX 5800s in here. I did test those. They both do function. I do have an SLI bridge between them that does function as well. Now the power supply that's in there, a couple of the cables, the insulation has rubbed off on them and some of the wires exposed. And power supply doesn't have the capabilities of supporting a second video card. So I'm going to swap that power supply out for this one. This one can support both CPUs, it can support both video cards. So that would be the first thing I replace. I'm also moving the solid state drive and installing four 500 gig drives. I'm going to stripe between them all, giving me a total of 2 terabytes. All the fans are functioning. All the memory. Now I do have a mismatched different brands of memory in there, but I mean it's all the same speed. So it really doesn't matter what brand it is, I guess. I did install a Blu-ray drive in there as well. And I'm not sure where I put them. But oh, here they are. I will be installing a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth USB adapters in there. Give me some wireless capabilities. Of course, the hard drives will be installed here. All this wiring here is coming out because all that wiring is bad. Some exposed wires, like I mentioned earlier. Yeah, I've just gotta tidy up the wiring, install the drives, make everything look nice and neat. I've got to install this fan for the memory back on the riser card for the second CPU in memory, which is right here. That's the second processor, second bank of memory. Of course, first processor's there, first bank of memory's in there. Got fan, internal speaker. This thing did come with a floppy drive, which I'm gonna keep that floppy drive in there because there's no reason to remove it. I gotta find a couple of face plates for this thing. Oh, the face plates were missing. And then I've got to clean up the case. There's some residue on here from old stickers and just a bunch of filth and dirt and some dust on the inside. I gotta clean it up as good as I can. A few loose screws in there I'm just now noticing. But overall, it's in pretty decent shape. Like I said, it's just a lot of cleanup, a lot of organizing to do, make it look better. But I'm gonna get started on the wiring. I'm gonna get the drive loaded. I'm gonna get Windows 7 Ultimate loaded. Get everything looking nice. Get everything tested. Run some benchmarks on it. Show you guys kind of what an early 2000 beast of a machine can do. I think this particular PC was originally used for a CAD system, which is why I had the Quadro in there. Now, I picked up a second Quadro off eBay for it, just to play with, give me something to do, test with. But yeah, for a Windows 7 machine, early 2000s build, can't really get much better than this. I'm thinking about rear ports here. We have parallel, serial, FireWire, the PS2 ports. Looks like external SATA, 6 USB ports, of course, microphone, speaker port, network. Of course, there are the video cards, 4 DVIs, 2 SVDOs, 2 DVIs. I'm sorry, 4 DVIs, 2 display ports. Of course, I've got enough room for, I think, yeah, 2 more expansion cards if I wanted to, but I'm more than likely going to put a USB 3.0 card in here just to have quicker USB connections. I may, I'll have to definitely take these fans out and clean those a little better. This fan here and fan there, those are pretty dusty, pretty filthy. Besides that, besides just a little cleanup and polishing and organizing of the wiring, there's really not much more left to do on this thing. Of course, once the processors get here, I'm gonna swap those out and show you guys that and rerun the benchmarks for those new processors in there and whatnot. So be on the lookout for that future video once those processors come in. I think they'll be here in the next week or two, if I remember right. Yeah, it's time to start stripping out all this old wiring to the power supply, take out this old power supply, install the new power supply, rerun the cabling, install the hard drives, fans back in, clean up the dust, polish up the case, and we'll be good to go until the processors get here. Hope you guys enjoy. Alright, got everything put back together. Looks like it does boot. I guess you guys noticed that I've only got one of the video cards in there for right now. That's because the second video card, I found that the fan has failed on it. So I have got a new fan ordered for that second video card. Should be here in a couple weeks. So I'll get that fan replaced. I'll get that recorded and everything and post an update on that. I'm gonna wind up when that fan gets here. I'm gonna wind up redoing the thermal pads and thermal paste on both of these video cards since they're so old. All that stuff is dried out. While I was putting everything together, my two new processors for this came in. Now each of these are 6-core, 12-thread Xeons, giving me 12-core, 24-thread total. I'm gonna go ahead and get these swapped out while I'm doing what I'm doing. Get rid of these dual-core Xeons, give me a little more horsepower. And once I get these swapped, we'll get Windows 7 loaded. We'll get some things tested, run some benchmarks. Basically see what it's capable of. Alright, new processor in. Let's go through BIOS setup, make sure everything's good to go. so figure out why those two drives weren't showing up. Found it being an issue with the power connectors. Got them connected with the different connections. All four drives are showing up. I can now stripe across all four drives. There we go. Alright, got four 500 gig drives striped across all four. It would be 2 terabytes total. Alright. Also got my floppy drive and my Blu-ray drive in there. And I will also be attaching a Wi-Fi adapter and a Bluetooth adapter. Not that I'll be using them all that often, but the option is there. Alright. That's done. Got my USB flash drive enabled or it plugged in with Windows 7. Let's reboot. And start the process of loading the operating system. Alright guys, I'm going to get the 7 loaded, get it updated, all the drivers loaded. I'm gonna finish getting all this tidied up, put back together properly, and I will be back once that process is done. We can run it through a few benchmarks, run through its paces to see what's capable of. We'll be back. Alright, so I've got everything loaded. Windows 7's installed. Windows 7 is completely updated. Got all the drivers loaded. Video card drivers loaded. Everything's functional now. I had to take out the FX 5800s because on one of them, the fan was bad and obviously made it wound up overheating. The other one, the fan does work, it just keeps overheating. So I do have a new fan ordered for this one. Once that comes in, well, I have the new fan and some new thermal pads ordered for them. So once those come in, I'm going to get this fan replaced. I'm going to redo the thermal paste on both of these and redo the thermal pads on both of these to get around the heating issues. But for right now, I have a GTX 1060 installed in this, which is, I mean, way newer than this system. This particular build was, or this model was built in 2011. Now, after I rebuilt it, I did install, as I mentioned before, 2 Xeon processors, the X5690s. They are, each processor is 6 core, 12 thread, give me 12 cores, 24 threads total. Like I said, 48 gigs of DDR3 memory. I have four hard drives, each being 500 gigs a piece, set up in a RAID configuration, striped. So giving me, I mean, after formatting all, it's a little less than 2 terabytes. I did install a USB 3.0 card. I do have a USB Wi-Fi adapter and a USB Bluetooth adapter. Drivers for all those loaded. Everything's working as expected. Just to give you guys, let you guys see inside and everything. Alright, so the first processor is under this shroud here. First processor in memory. Second processor in memory is on this riser part here. There are my 4 drives. I did wind up taking out the factory power supply because, like I mentioned, some of the cabling, some of the insulation was stripped off on the exposing bare wires and wanted anything to short out. So I did swap out the power supply. That's 850 watt power supply. There's that 1060 right there. And the back end of it, the terminal port, serial port, firewire, several USBs, external SATA, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi adapters, video card, USB 3.0 port or card. Here's the front of the case here. Now I do still need to find a couple blank plates for that. I just got some tape in there to help with the airflow. Let's run some quick benchmarks on this thing, and I'll run a quick game or two. I'm not gonna spend much time on it until I get these two FX5800s repaired and installed. So I'll get the camera set up to give a better view of the screen, and we'll run some benchmarks and whatnot. Alright guys, so I am unable to run any kind of benchmarks on this thing due to the incompatibility of the programs with Windows 7. I've tried several different benchmarking tools and they all either won't install or I get an error on launch. Now I have gotten a couple games to run on Windows 7. They all run perfectly fine, running in 1080. I have the FPS limited to 60 frames per second. I'll launch one of those games here in just a second, just to show you. But what I'm going to wind up doing is get this PC set up with dual boot with, I'll keep Windows 7, but I'm going to dual boot it with Windows 7 and Windows 10 so I can get a little more compatibility for those benchmarking tools. I'm going to wait to do that until I get the parts in for those two FX5800s. Get those fixed, get those reinstalled, get the drivers for those loaded with Windows 7, and get Windows 10 installed, updated, whole 9 yards. And then I should be able to run the benchmarks in Windows 10 just to show the capabilities of this machine. I won't keep Windows 7 on there, like I said, just so I can have something of this particular error to run older software on. I'll post a second video on all of that when the parts get in for those video cards. Now I've got these two boxes open just to show you guys just the specs of these machines. As you can see, it is seeing all 24 cores there. It is recognizing 48 gigs of memory, but for some reason it's only able to use 40 gigs of it. Not quite sure what's going on there at the moment, but I'm not too concerned about it. 40 gigs is plenty. So, yeah, let me show you. Let me launch a quick game here. Let's see, Destiny. Yeah, I'm getting frame rates in mid-50s, 60s, 1080. Not bad. Has a lot to do with the video card though. As you can tell from my flipping the screen there, it's not hitting the processor or memory very hard. See my frame rate up there in the top left. I'm not sure if you guys can see that very well, but like I said, it's hitting high. It's hitting in the mid-50s to 60s. But enough of that. Alright, so you guys stay tuned for the next video. A replacement fan for that video card should be here in the next week or two. I'll get that replaced. I'll get the thermal pads replaced and the thermal paste replaced on both those cards. I'll get those installed. I'll get Windows 10 loaded. That's the second OS on this PC. I'll get booted into that, run some benchmarks on something that's actually compatible with those applications, and I will keep you guys updated. Stay tuned.